Good morning. Today's lesson is going to be about cardiovascular disease. And if you look in your Florida curriculum, this is all about lesson 4.03. Our objective today is that by the time we're done with this mini lesson, you will learn about several different types of cardiovascular disease, their risk factors that are associated with disease, some ways that you can prevent heart disease, and then how it is treated. So here's some interesting facts about heart disease. And this is really current information coming from 2015. It is the leading cause of death for men and women. And in fact, if you happen to be male, more than half of all deaths from heart disease happen to be guys versus women. So if you are a guy, you really want to pay attention to this as you're growing and maturing. In the United States, a heart attack happens every 40 seconds. 40 seconds. So they're prevalent. It's a huge problem. Every minute, more than one person dies of heart disease in the United States. And regardless of, your racial background or ethnic identity, it is also a leading cause of death. So what's universal about heart disease is, it really is universal. It applies to absolutely everybody. And on an annual basis, healthcare costs that are directly associated with heart disease exceed $200 billion a year in the United States. That is a lot of money for a disease that can be largely prevented. So exactly what is cardiovascular disease? Well, in a nutshell, that is when either the heart or the blood vessels have a disease where they're weakened, they are plugged, they're damaged. So it's a very, very broad term. Now, heart disease can present itself primarily in 4 different ways. We have atherosclerosis, oh boy, getting stuck on my tongue here. Arteriosclerosis, stroke, and heart attacks. And I'm going to go through each one of these. So, I'm sorry, I'm having such a hard time. Atherosclerosis, that is where you get large fatty deposits that are put into the walls of your arteries. And when a heart condition is manifesting itself in both the large and the medium-sized arteries, this is what atherosclerosis looks like. So you have plaque that builds up. There's an image here on the slide. You've got plaque that builds up in the artery. And when that happens, blood is not able to flow through the body like it should be. And when that happens, the heart not only is working harder to circulate the blood, but the heart is deprived of oxygen. And the heart gets oxygen from that blood flow. And when it isn't flowing there, the heart becomes damaged. So that is what happens with atherosclerosis. So it's narrowing of the artery due specifically to plaque. Now, arteriosclerosis, that is referring to the hardening of the arteries, and these tend to be very small in comparison to the other ones. So these happen to be more in the inner and middle layers of the walls of the arteries. They aren't your major arteries. And again, because these arteries, smaller arteries, are becoming small and stiff, the blood flow is not able to move through. So it's a different type of condition from the other one. Now, here's a video I want to watch real quick about heart disease.
The heart is responsible for pumping oxygen-rich blood to the rest of the body, providing the energy that the body needs to function. The muscles of the heart itself also need a supply of blood. The coronary arteries, one of which we see here, fill that need. Sometimes a cholesterol plaque forms on the side of the artery, reducing blood flow. If part of that plaque breaks through into the artery, platelets tend to attach to it, creating a blood clot, further reducing or blocking blood flow. The blockage in the artery prevents blood from reaching part of the heart muscle. Without blood, the muscle is starved for oxygen, causing damage to the heart muscle. The heart attack occurs because the damaged heart can no longer pump properly.
Wow, so that is a little nutshell about what happens when we have a heart attack. So it's pretty serious, and that can happen when you have the buildup of plaque that's happening, or also when you've got the hardening where you've lost that elasticity. So heart attacks are pretty serious. Now, another problem that we have with that is considered under the umbrella of heart disease is stroke. And, just like we have heart attacks, a stroke is what we would consider a brain attack. And that is where the brain is deprived of oxygen. And as soon as that happens, it begins to die. And the brain can be deprived of oxygen because those arteries are, you've got clogging going on. You don't have the ability the heart isn't able to pump the blood through the circulatory system, and the brain is affected. And stroke it's pretty debilitating. People can come back from it, but some of the long-term side effects that stroke victims can have is that they have impaired speech. A lot of times it's very fuzzy, and they can also have trouble moving on one side of their body. So I've known stroke victims, and if the stroke occurred in the left side of the brain, it was the right side of their body that had difficulty moving. So some stroke facts. Stroke is the 5th leading cause of death in America, and it's a leading cause of adult disability. So I'm not going to read every one of these. You can certainly stop this and look at it. But there's some interesting myths surrounding strokes. Some people believe, for example, that a stroke cannot be prevented, when in fact that is not the case. Up to 80% of all strokes are preventable, and preventable through diet. And a myth, another one that I think affects you guys, is that stroke only affects the elderly. A stroke can happen to anyone at any time, and that makes it really important to be aware of. And I think we've talked about this before, that the age group that is now experiencing more strokes than any other is 18 to 24-year-olds. So it is very much becoming a young person's disease. And I find that just scary. You want to think of it as an older person disease, but it's not. And let's see. Another myth is that strokes are not hereditary. Well, actually, if you have a family history, if you have parents or grandmas and grandpas that have had strokes, it does increase your chance for having a stroke. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will have one, but it's something you need to be aware of as you're thinking about life choices that you're making with your diet, with your exercise. And it's really important that sometimes people have stroke type symptoms where they maybe have slurring of speech or there's confusion or they suddenly start falling down and then they come back and they think they're okay. Well, these are called TIAs or transient ischemic attacks. And what these are is they're a warning sign prior to an actual stroke happening. And instead of where people make mistakes is that once their initial symptoms are occurring, they don't go to the doctor. That's a big mistake. You need to take these are real serious, and getting in to receive medical care right away can help to prevent a bigger event happening. So, some of the risk factors for heart disease and stroke, we have uncontrollable factors. So, family history, knowing that, the state of your parents' heart disease, your grandparents, those are really good indicators of whether or not you have a history. And then your gene pool. Some people have a tendency towards higher cholesterol, even though they eat a very, very healthy diet. So, family history and genes do play a role, and we don't have any control of that, but it's important information to be aware of. However, what we do have control of is either reducing or eliminating some of these risk factors. And these risk factors are high cholesterol. So, this can help if you have too much cholesterol in your blood, it can attach itself to the artery, and then the platelets become, as they're passing by it, just like the video showed, they get caught. And that can lead to heart disease. Having high blood pressure. So you can, if your heart is working too hard all the time, that damages the heart and can make it weaker. Cigarette smoking. Cigarettes, don't start. Just don't start. They are so, so, so bad. They also increase your risk of heart disease because they're impacting the amount of oxygen that your heart is able to get. And cigarettes, you get that buzz from the nicotine, so that's raising your heart level and your blood pressure. And then being physically inactive. So if you're a couch potato playing video games all the time, that is setting yourself up for possibilities of heart disease and stroke in the future. And I also want to say that in addition to the high cholesterol, but eating a healthy diet, a diet where you are, if you think about your plate, where you're eating more vegetables followed by fruit, small amounts of protein, and small amounts of dairy and carbs, having a low fat diet where you're getting your nutrition, especially from those good vegetables, because they don't have fat. All meat has fat in it, whereas vegetables don't. And that will also help to control your cholesterol, and it will help you to keep your body from becoming obese. But exercise is important regardless of what your passion is, whether it's parkour, yoga, riding bikes, being out on agility courses with critters. There's just so many different things that we can do to be active. And it's finding that passion that you enjoy doing and getting out there and doing it. That will help you. That will help you. So, as we're talking about ways to reduce our risk, so walking 30 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week. 30 minutes is not a long time. That's, just running to the grocery store and back. Optimizing your weight. I was just talking about that. Keeping yourself at a healthy weight and staying within your body mass index range. Eating a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet. So that doesn't mean buying diet food, but making good choices. There's lots of regular food that is lower in fat, such as beans, quinoa. Those are incredible protein sources that are also, they're low in fat. And my little slide here says quit smoking, and I say don't even start. It's a nasty, dirty habit. Don't do it. And it's expensive. So, the key to maintaining a healthy heart and why it's important is that it reduces your chances of having heart disease, and it increases your chances of survival if you happen to have a heart attack or a stroke. So think of yourself as setting your body up for success and making it as strong as you can so that no matter what it is fighting in the future, that you've given it a good, strong foundation that you can stand on. So for this assignment, and I think this is actually one of my favorite assignments in the class, I want you to create a public service announcement. Now, a public service announcement, we see these on TV frequently about, I forget which station it is, but the things where they're telling you about the importance of literacy or the importance of being active or volunteering. This is a public service announcement in regards to cardiovascular disease. And what you're going to do is you're going to research one of the cardiovascular diseases and organize the information into your project. And you can include your project, you can make your project a video, you can do a poster, you can do a Prezi, you can do a PowerPoint, as long as you are effectively communicating. So what are some things you need to be including? You need to talk about the disease. What is it? Is it hereditary? Is it contagious? How do you get it? What are some risk behaviors associated with the disease? How do you prevent it? How is it treated? And do you have any personal experience with these diseases, either from you or your family or possibly a friend? And definitely include a reference list. You're going to be doing research, so please tell me where you got your information from. And make sure that you don't just copy paste. That's called cheating and copying. Use the information, put it into your own words. And be creative. Use pictures. Pictures make presentations far more interesting. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to this, and I hope you enjoyed doing this project. I think it's really valuable, and it's definitely something that you could, if you made a pamphlet, for example, you could distribute it at the library or your grocery store, and that would be so cool. So if you have any questions, give me a call. And anyway, I look forward to seeing your work. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.